Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Design Journeys. How many times have you wondered before beginning a design project that where should I get my references from? So I'll share some little snippets from my experience and how I have been able to build a point of reference for myself, which always helps me in the process of design. So I'll share this very interesting story. Last evening, I was having a word with the interns in my team, and many of them were talking about visiting the Mughal monuments in Delhi. And I ended up thinking about a book that I had read, which was called Daughters of the Sun, which was kind of a historical documentation by a researcher, a Delhi based researcher, who had looked at the Mughal sort of, the alternative history of Mughal zananas, the Mughal lives, the Mughal politics from the women's perspective. And it's a very exhaustive book. It was covering all the way from Babur's times all the way to Aurangzeb and further beyond. And basically, from a historical perspective, not really much talking about architectural perspective, but it gave me an insight into uh, some stories which were, sort of ongoing while Delhi was being built, while Agra was being built, while these forts were being built. And uh, and then I eventually went on YouTube and I ended up watching sort of an episode of the author of that book taking someone through that entire book or through the stories of the book via miniature paintings. And in that, she uses cross references of a lot of Mughal buildings like the Jharokas, or, for example, she was talking about the times of Humayun and Akbar. And there was this one incident in which she shows that, that Humayun and his wife were actually traveling to Persia, and they had left Akbar and, the other clan back for 2 years, because obviously going to all the way to Persia and coming back was not an easy task. It took them 2 years. And it was during these 2 years that the feeding mothers were taking care of them. In fact, some of them ended up becoming very strong by virtue of, just being there, and just because of the minds being so sharp. And Akbar was very young at that time. So they were mainly ruling on his behalf, and so on and so forth. And then she also mentions about this wife of Humayun who actually came back later on, and then she settled outside of the tomb of Humayun. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that it gave me a completely different perspective. Each building has a story to tell. It has a time and place in which that building has occurred. And especially if you are visiting as a student, if you're visiting a new monument or a new city, it is important, in my opinion, to first go through those historical references, understand the time and place, the political scenario in which that building was manifesting itself, understand it from the history, from politics, from art perspective, what and why, what materials, what must have been the scenarios, why are the openings in a certain way, why is the built form in a certain way. And then, so one of the things that I always advise, and I have been doing it for years, is that when I am visiting that place, I always carry my diary and I make notes of the stuff that I am observing, and my readings. Because, pictorial capture is just one way of looking at things. It's still just visual referencing. But it is very important to assimilate those thoughts and the experience of while and when you are visiting any place. It could be something as simple as your visit to a restaurant for a dinner, right? But it's important to continuously start making those references and those assimilations and keep noting them somewhere. And what I have noticed that happens with me is that when I have a very strong experience, then a lot of those experiences, sort of collate and express themselves in the form of either a poetry or something uh, like a painting, or some kind of an expression. So what I'm trying to say is that there is an importance of building a gallery and a library of references, number one. Number two, it is important to have a formal written documentation by hand or in the form of your sketches, which will be your expression or your collection of your experience or recollection of your experience. You can always go back to it and relive that experience that you may have at that time. And third, it is important to timely sort of, keep sharing it in the form of an expression of your skill. You may be good at acting, you may be good at theater, you may be good at singing, you may be sketching, you may be writing, you may be writing poetry, you may be, whatever your medium of expression is, dance. Uh, but all of those experiences will come through in the form of that particular expression of your skill. And I think that is the essence of the concept of design. That is where concepts are born from. So this is my advice, that these are a few things. If you do them at a regular basis, the library of references will become stronger with each passing year, each passing experience, each passing travel. And I think in today's day and age, uh, with the availability of internet, referencing and building an experience is something that can be done in a much shorter span of time at much higher pace. So this is how I would like to end my episode, and let's hope that each one of us, as architects, as designers, as collectors, can build those historical art, books, text, stories, all of those references which are eventually going to culminate into our design. Thank you for listening in, and I hope to see you in the next episode of the Design Journeys.